So in this one, we're going to implement a slug field, so our posts are using a slug instead of ID for our URLs. Now a slug would be something that is a little bit more shareable for our actual post itself. So right here it should say, instead of 27, it should say Tesla-2 probably, or something along those lines. So that's what we're going to do now. And it's going to change pretty much everything about our actual URLs so far, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot better for our project. And the reason I've taken so long to bring it out is because it's more about getting these things going and then making improvements, right? So we're actually getting close to having a finished working blog, and then down the line, we could just add on to it and make a lot of improvements. So this is one of those improvements as to how the URLs are going to actually work. Now, one would argue that this part itself should be released or finished prior to actually releasing it. That's why we're doing it. So let's jump into our model, and we're going to call slug, and it's going to be models.slug field. And we're going to say unique equals to true. So this is a required field now. And since we're saying unique equals to true, I'm actually going to delete my old database and just make some updates to it, because the slug field is one of those things that we absolutely want to have from the get-go. And what we're about to do is also important for if you ever run into any issues with your code. It's okay to delete the database when you're practicing, when you're working through all this stuff. So now that we've got this, let's go ahead and actually delete the database and all the things that you would need to do to just get rid of and kind of start anew. So I'm going to delete everything inside of media CDN. So all of the files inside of here. Delete these as well. And we're going to look for our database, which is db.sqlite3. So this will deletes literally everything from our database. So we no longer have a database. And our migrations, we also want to delete these. Let's review these in Finder and just go through here and also delete the PYC stuff. So everything except for init. I'm going to delete all of that. So post is no longer there. Our database is no longer there. So what that means is now we have to run migrations again. So I'll do python manage.py, migrate, and python manage.py, make migrations, and python manage.py, migrate again. And lastly, let's create a super user again. And this time it's jmitch again, and we'll do hello@teamcfe.com. That is real. And then try Django 19, try Django 19 as we did before. Oops, looks like we got a little error. There we go. And let's run the server again. Take a look at our project. We don't have any posts, so our post list is empty, right? So we haven't created any posts according to this, but now we can. So we'll say Tesla. And before I actually create this post, I want to do something in addition to this for our slug. So inside of our models, I want to create a signal that is going to do something prior to this being saved. So let's actually import the signal prior to even talking about it. So I'm going to come in here. At the very top, we're going to do from db.models.signals import pre-save. And let's reorganize this so it's in alphabetical order. So pre-save means that right before the model is saved, we're going to do something. So let's define a function, and this is going to be a signal receiver. So this is going to be post or pre-save post signal receiver, or just pre-save post receiver. Post as in the post, not like method post. And then we will do some stuff for that. And then we'll also do pre-save.connect. And the sender is post, or excuse me, the receiver is pre-save post receiver, and then the sender equals to post, as in the post model. So we got to figure out what we need to pass through this function. And to do that, we just look at the documentation itself. It has a few things that are passed. All we really need is sender and instance. Everything else we don't have to worry about. So we'll just say sender, instance, args, and keyword args. So adding args and keyword args just says like, oh, if this function receives other things, just go ahead and add those into args or keyword args, and we don't have to worry about them really. So what I want to do is say the proposed slug is going to be equal to the slugify of the instance.title. So we're going to have to see what this slugify does, but we also have to import slugify. So we'll do that at the top, and it's from django.utils.text import slugify. What slugify does is it's going to turn our title into a slug. So if our title is, let's say, Tesla item 1, it would turn it into Tesla item 1. So it's just something that's URL ready. So so we're getting the slug, and then we want to make sure that that slug doesn't already exist. So I'll get or check to see if it exists by doing a filter, and we'll say exists equals to, and it's going to be post.objects.filter slug equals to slug, and then dot exists. We'll say if exists, then we will just say the slug is equal to a string like this, and this will be instance.id. So basically what it's doing here is, or well, we can get the original slug just by calling that. So all it's doing is appending the ID of the instance. More than likely, this will not actually conflict, right? Because if the instance ID, it's going to auto increment every time. But if it does actually cause an error, then you might want to rethink on how you're naming your title of your stuff. So if it exists, then slugs that. Otherwise, we will just go through and say instance.slug is equal to slug. And that's it. So since it's a pre-save, it's before it's being saved. So it's going through this prior to being saved. Every single time. Anytime a method of save is called, it's going to go through this pre-save receiver function. And then it's going to actually update our slug accordingly. So now that we've got this, let's actually go back and finish creating our form. And I'll say Tesla item ABC. We're going to choose an image for it, grab that car again, hit create post, and it was successfully created. So if we go into the admin, let's actually take a look at the post itself and see if it actually created the slug, and it did, right? So let's go back and do post again and create it. And again, I'm going to call it Tesla and another. Choose item or the image. We'll hit create post. And then we'll go into the admin one more time and take a look at the newest one, and it says Tesla-none. So what we have to do here is create a recursive function that's going to check this slug for us. It's going to check whether or not this slug has been created. So I'll just do define create slug, and it's going to take an instance, and then also the new slug equals to none. And I'm just going to explain these things step by step after we do it. So slug equals to slugify of instance.title. And then if new slug is not none, then slug equals to new slug. So the query set is equal to post.objects.filter slug equals to slug. Exists equals to qs.exists. If exists, new slug equals to %s dash %s %slug and qs.first.id, and then we're going to return create slug, and this is going to be instance again, and then new slug equals to new slug. Otherwise, we're going to return slug. The last thing I want to do here is order by the negative ID. Okay, and then finally we'll say down here, say if not instance.slug, then we will say instance.slug equals to create slug of the instance. That's it. Okay, so this is a recursive function. So what we're doing here is, first of all, we're slugifying the title, And then if the new slug is not none, so we're going to ignore that for a second, then we're going to check whether or not the slug exists. If it does exist, or any of the items, the post items exist, then we are going to run through it again. If it doesn't exist, we're just going to return that slug back. So let's run through it line by line. We do the instance slug, and if a new slug is coming through, then that slug is what that new slug is, and then it's going to run the check again, and then it's going to create a brand new instance one more time. So that's what we're going to do there. Now let's try this out. So we'll do Tesla, and then we'll try this a couple times. So I'm going to create post. So no, we need to spell filter correctly. Let's try that again. And reverse for detail is not working. So we've got, this should be slug. Just little testing errors there. Sorry about that. All right, so we refresh, and it created a brand new one. So let's create another one. And Tesla again, Tesla, create it again, and there it goes. So it's just adding on to the slug based on the ID that it's going through. Now, of course, you're probably not going to have that problem ever, but it's kind of cool to have a recursive function that allows us to use this slug as we have. So now if we go back into our posts, we now see all of our posts coming through here. Granted, it is basically the exact same thing over and over again, but if we click on it now, our URL is a little bit more robust and easier to share. So in the next one, we'll actually add in some share links. If you have any questions on this, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.